look at this story now, and it takes us to the issue with, well, the story with Ukraine, actually. And you know that this conflict has been going on for some time now. The war between I was about to say Israel, between Russia and Ukraine. Well, the UN General Assembly is set to vote on a resolution demanding the immediate return of Ukrainian children allegedly taken to Russia. Today, the Ukrainian Association of South Africa is urging President Cyril Ramaphosa to support it, underscoring who is responsible, what is at stake, and why South Africa's vote matters, and how children's rights are on the line. And this call comes after South Africa signaled readiness in November 2024 to help mediate their return. After 400 names of missing Ukrainian children were handed to President Ramaphosa during President Zelensky's April 2025 visit, as human rights groups warn that childhood has an expiry date and that the world cannot look away. Well, to share a little bit more about this, we're now joined by DZVINKA KACHUR, who's a co-founder of the NPO Ukrainian Association of South Africa, and also serves as the Vice President of the Ukrainian World Congress for the African continent, and is also a fellow researcher at the Center for Sustainability Transition at the University of Stellenbosch. Thank you so much indeed for joining us, and welcome to the program.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
Take us through how we got to this point initially. Give us a bit of a history of the story of how these children were taken, under what guise, and where they are now.
Thank you. So actually it started already in 2014 when Russian invasion started initially at the Crimean Peninsula and then in the east part of Ukraine. Russia has started taking Ukrainian children and changing the citizenship and fast-tracking the adoption into Russian families. And changing citizenship without consent is a crime according to international law as well as many national legislation. However, the scale of the situation significantly changed in 2022 when Russia started the full-scale invasion. And we can see that currently we're talking about 19,500 of documented cases where children were forcibly deported. And the estimated numbers are 200,000 of children. However, Russia declared that they have 700,000 Ukrainian children. And the challenge with this, definitely, this crime has already been acknowledged in the International Criminal Court when the warrant of arrest against Putin was initiated in March 2022, in 2022 specifically for the Russian president signing the decree that allows to change the citizenship, the date of birth, all the personal data of a child without parental or caregiver's consent. So currently, Russian state can change the citizenship of any Ukrainian child without any consent, and this is what's happening. So since 2022, it's been a known crime, and that includes a number of issues like change of identity when children are not allowed to speak their language or to show any support to their country, forced passportization, specifically providing them with Russian citizenship and denying their Ukrainian citizenship, militarization of the education, so children are trained to become soldiers, and deportation, so separation from their families or caregivers, as well as creating a number of barriers for the parents and caregivers to return their children from this forced deportation.
So what does this resolution call for then?
It has three specific issues. One, that Russia has to return all the children, but as a first step, to provide all the names of Ukrainian children that have been deported. And this is a very important step because, as I mentioned, 19,500 are documented cases, but there are many more. So we're talking about at least 10 times more children whose cases have not yet been documented. So the resolution puts responsibility on Russia to provide international community with all the names of Ukrainian children that have been taken to Russia. Secondly, it demands that Russia stops this practice of forcible transfer because it has not stopped yet. It continues, and in 2025, it still we can see more and more children that are separated and whose citizenship is changed. And the last one, which is probably the most action-oriented, is that the UN Secretary General will be coordinating this role. And we know that in some other conflicts, like, for example, in the case of Syrian children, this mechanism has been affected. So it provides the UN Secretary General with this coordination role to demand those names and to ensure that this practice ends.
What has Russia's position been regarding these children? What are they saying in terms of how these children have ended up in Russia and why they're doing what they're doing?
I think it has been clear through the legislation that has been signed by President Putin, and their position has been very open in the media, and that's why it allowed for ICC warrant of arrest to come so quickly, because they are very open that they are changing the citizenship openly and allow fast tracking of adoption of Ukrainian children into Russian families. So they don't recognize Ukraine as a state and don't recognize Ukrainian identity of children. So there is a lot of those cases, unfortunately, including the case of Russian ombudsman for children's rights, who has taken a Ukrainian child, and she openly explains how the child wanted to be a Ukrainian, wanted to speak Ukrainian language, and how difficult it was to break the child perception and to turn into the Russian identity, and how much work she personally had to do to stop him speaking Ukrainian language and to stop seeing Ukraine as as his own country. So there is no lack of evidence of what is happening to the children. We also have, a lot of thousands of documented cases how the children are separated. For example, parents are sent into the Russian prison, and then the child can be fostered into the Russian family, where they again are not allowed to speak Ukrainian language, said that their country is a wrong country and their parents are criminals and they don't want to be, that the parents don't want to be with the child, while in practice parents are in prison. So I think we can see that this is extremely difficult practice. This specific resolution doesn't talk about militarization; it only talks about indoctrination of children. But we understand that the resolution has many, many, many compromises to allow for any country to support it.
Talking about support, South Africa has seen itself as being neutral in terms of the conflict between Ukraine and Russia. I guess when it comes to children, a definite stance needs to be taken.
Yes, and I think South Africa has already shown multiple examples that children's rights are important, including the children's rights of Ukrainian children's rights. In 2023, President Ramaphosa, during the African Peace Mission, said into Putin's face that Ukrainian children need to return. Unfortunately, Putin disagreed, but we can see that for President Ramaphosa, this topic has been important, and even during the infamous meeting at the Oval Cabinet with Donald Trump, out of all that chaos, the topic of Ukrainian children still been raised by Ramaphosa, who mentioned that Ukrainian children need to be returned. So we really hope that South Africa will put children's rights first in this UN resolution and support it and not abstain. I want to mention that this resolution does not mention that the Russian aggression is illegal. So that is also taken out. It only includes the topic of children. So we hope that it has nothing that goes beyond the obligations that South Africa has already taken through the Convention on Children's Rights, the Geneva Convention, Rome Statute. So all those international obligations already South Africa has already committed to them. So this resolution cannot go against anything that South Africa is declaring.
What have you seen from other African countries? I know South Africa has been quite vocal, as you've said. Have you seen support as well from other African countries?
Yes, of course. We can see that different topics with regards to the Russian aggression have different support. The most support has had the resolution on territorial integrity, where not a single country voted, African country voted against this resolution. So we understand the topic of territorial integrity is critical for African continent, and we also hope that this resolution on children's rights will face a similar support because we understand that if such a large scale crime against children is going without proper attention of international community, it sends a very dangerous message to those who abduct children in Nigeria, those who abduct children in Sudan. So it's just a very negative precedent that tells those who want to use children as a leverage that it's allowed, that you can go and use this mechanism, and international community will not be worried about this. So we really hope that many African countries, actually that none of the African countries will go against this resolution.
In what ways do you think that Russia's continued deportation of children, even in 2025, challenges the effectiveness of existing international human rights systems and conventions and enforcement thereof of some of these rules?
Yes, I think obviously the whole international system has been pretty much paralyzed. We've seen that the veto right that the 5 countries have, including Russia, the UN Security Council, pretty much paralyzes international system, and it doesn't matter that 140 countries vote, saying, including many African countries, that Russian aggression has to be stopped. Russia can stop any actions at the UN level of the UN Security Council. So more work needs to be done to curb the veto right and to have the UN Security Council more representative, including representatives of the African continent. But we believe that the children's rights cannot wait for that, because childhood has an expiry date. You know, after the age of 18, children losing their rights, children's rights, right? They become an adult. And it's very important that we act really promptly, because already since 2022, we are talking almost 4 years. If we look since those children who were abducted in 2014, most of them are probably already adults. So all those violations, industrialization, militarization is used against them. And children as early as age of 5 years old already put into the military clothes used for propaganda. They are photographed with machine guns just to promote this militarization. And we believe that children should have the right to remain children. So we really hope that international community will put their efforts together, and especially South Africa, to stop this practice.
Dziewinka, we're going to have to leave it there. Thank you so much indeed for joining us. And let's hope that the world does right by the Ukrainian children. Thanks for your time.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
All right. Now, across the continent, Africa's children continue to face some of the most urgent human rights challenges, from child labor to informal mining to exploitation in supply chains, toxic pollutions, and lack of access to basic health and education services. Yet, during the current 46th Ordinary Session of the African Committee of Experts on Rights and Welfare on the Child, new data is being revealed that very few African governments have actually integrated child's rights into their national plans on business and human rights, despite growing corporate involvement in sectors affecting children's rights. Well, to help us unpack this, I spoke to Dr. Musa Kika, who's the Executive Director of the Institute for Human Rights and Development in Africa, to talk about some of these issues. And I began by asking him what have been the highlights so far at the current 46th session of the ACERWC.
The African Committee of Experts on the Rights and Welfare of the Child is having its 46th ordinary session here in Maseru. The committee meets twice every year, and this is the 46th meeting. The committee is the continent's